Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Meltdown. I hope you're having a great day. I listened to myself yesterday for a few minutes and realized that when I'm doing this, it comes out pretty loud. So trust me, I'm sure the emotion will kick in. And when it does, why, you'll know that too. I've got a lot of events that are important for those of you that follow the show that are looking to get some answers and why things are happening the way they are. Metals are down, and it is extremely alarming to those of us that understand basic economics. If you've got a blank check and you're out writing as much as you possibly can, as often as you can, and you overdraw your account, say by $1 million, because the average person could probably relate to $1 million as opposed to $1 trillion. So at $1 million or $100,000, if you just start writing checks, eventually the people you've written them to are going to file charges and come after you. Now, the analogy fits what's happening in Washington and every major capital in the world with the banking system. We are watching government put us deeper and deeper in debt. And eventually, in the case of you writing $100,000 worth of bad checks, you're going to jail. In the case of the government, they approve it. They allow themselves to function in an unlimited amount of debt. Now, here in the United States, we keep going up against the debt ceiling. And those debates end up roadblocked. That's why we ended up with a 16-day furlough. In lieu of the trillions of dollars that the economy is losing to the government, mismanagement, you've got to be smarter than them. Gold is something that has been acquired, and I've referred to it and related to it many times. It gets down to owning something tangible. Now, one of the stories that Michael shared with me this morning is about some gold bars that were stashed in an airplane toilet. $1.1 million worth of gold bars on a commercial plane in eastern India. The tariff that the Indian government has put on gold jewelry ranges up to 15%, which is up from 10%. And it's a continuation of people being concerned about the rupee, the currency that is traded over in India. The bottom line is that those of us who understand the most fundamental, basic understanding of economics is that when you are 16 or 17 trillion in debt, and that the policies that have been established by the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government and all the members, the majority in Congress and the Senate, then you start to understand, the House and the Senate, Congress, when they approve of all these things by a majority, we've given them a rubber stamp to do what they want. Now, we know in Japan that they have waived their debt ceiling. It is unlimited. They can go in as much debt as it takes. They're going to buy their own debt in the bond market, and they're going to float themselves, and those of us are going to interact with them in whatever form of currency transaction they accept. We should see gold at somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 an ounce. And at the moment, we see it trading down about 15 bucks. Bid is going to be in the 1250s. Ask is in the 1260s. If you're buying 1 ounce gold American Eagles, you're going to pay in the neighborhood of $13.40 a piece. Depends on the quantity, depends on what you're looking to accomplish. But if you watch the trend and you follow what's going on in precious metals, you understand that there is a major amount of manipulation going on. Who's selling? Why does the market keep going down? Ultimately, this is a no-brainer. The reason it's a no-brainer is that GLD, the largest ETF, quote, in the world, has 7 sub-custodians, of which one is JP Morgan Chase. Now, I reported it yesterday. It's all over the news wires today. JP Morgan has moved capital reserves to cover a $13 billion mortgage settlement for manipulating the real estate market. That's before we even get to the ancillary companies that JP Morgan owns. We're just talking about the mothership. So when I talk about GLD and I realize of the 7 sub-custodians, one of them is JP Morgan Chase. They are now being cited, GLD is being cited for the manipulation in the gold market. That's because the banks, the sub-custodians, there were 7 of them when GLD was originally formed, are in the market and in the business of manipulating and making money. And frankly, folks, if you got a $13 billion reserve, you probably got more stashed, and that's part of what the Department of Justice and the government are looking at. Did a little research last night because this topic has really been on my mind in lieu of me discussing rare coins, which I certainly love. But the CME used to trade in 50-ounce contracts. Now you can trade as little as 10 troy ounces in a contract, 50 and 100-ounce contracts, 100-ounce options. And according to what the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, reports, there are in excess of 200,000 trades a day, totaling in excess of 20 million ounces of gold. Folks, there's not that much physical gold. It's leveraged at 50 to 1 minimum. That's the minimum number. And warehouses have been cleaned out of the physical product. No, you can come by 5, 10, several hundred ounces, maybe 1,000 ounces if you're liquid to do it. And why would you do it if the downside in gold might be 10%? Heck, we could conceivably, I mean, there are guys that are chartists that are watching what's going on in the world and why would the metal keep falling. Now, one of the things that I look for is trends. And so the trend by a lot of technical analysts indicates that gold could go test $1,000. That's clearly a 20% drop. Why would it do it? Because you've got major banks and institutions selling it short, banking on the fact they're going to force it to go down. The physical metal, the premium, is widening. If you want to buy silver American Eagles in quantity, you're going to spend in the neighborhood of about $25 million. I'm sorry, $25, maybe $25.75 per coin for an original monster box. If you're going to buy onesies and twosies, be prepared to pay between 28 and 50 bucks a coin. And the reason you're going to pay the premium is because the earlier years are under availability stress. Now, the U.S. Mint reported a record year already in the production of silver American Eagles. In excess of 40 million coins have been struck. And for me to be sharing the concern of what's really going on out there, the Fort Knox, where supposedly or purportedly, depending on how you want to put the numbers out there, is, quote, reporting there's 147.3 million ounces, quote, stashed at Fort Knox. Folks, based on the futures trades, that's barely 7 days of transactions if everybody decided to take physical delivery of what they've got. I reported that John Paulson is back in GLD, and his share value, if it was converted into gold, would be in excess of 10 million ounces. That's 10% basically of what's stored at Fort Knox. It ain't happening. It's not going to happen. They do not plan on taking the physical delivery. If they did, CME would shut down. The entire gold market would be thrown upside down, and the value of gold would skyrocket to the levels somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 and maybe 10,000. The numbers go into the stratosphere because if you monetize gold to the U.S. debt, you're pushing 600 grand an ounce. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that gold's going to be 600,000. I'm not even going to tell you it's going to be a tenth of that at 60,000. I'm telling you the ratios pan out. That's where it should be. This is ridiculously low. And if you don't understand why you own multiple types of coins in multiple conditions, you're missing the boat. It's why I am so emphatic about owning rarity. It's why I report, and it's obvious, that there are bubble markets everywhere. Now, Ben Bernanke was speaking last night, and he made it even more clear. Eventually, we'll get to 6.5% unemployment, maybe 6%. And maybe the economy is going to recover and we're going to see a roaring market and oil prices are going to drop even further. But you know what else he said? Even though we may start to taper and stop buying all of our debt, that's $1 trillion minimum a year, once we achieve the goals under the next Fed chairperson, Janet Yellen's the one that everyone's talking about, we're going to remain at 0% interest for a long time, So where some of us want to believe that the economy can be juggled for another 2 to 5 years, the reality is that everything can collapse in a moment. And there's no assurances out there, which is why people run into the gold market. It's why they should run to the gold market. Now, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is not. And it's important to understand that coins and precious metals can be manipulated. This is long-term. It's the rainy day account, just the same way our parents or grandparents had passbook savings. I've talked about the Eric Newman collection the last few days. Mr. Newman spent little to nothing on the 1,800 coins, and this was just auction 1. There were 3 planned, where they were guesstimating a $15 million receipt at the end of this past week's auction. He received in excess of $23 million. Now the auction house gets its money and everyone's got their deals cut, but reality is there were a couple of other coins that butted up against $1 million. And what they were isn't important. What they are is the movement, the ability to see other things happening. And so it's not about necessarily, when I bring the presentation to you about how gorgeous the coins are, it's that there's somebody else out there that wants them. That's really important. Now, another spell that I want to disable, I guess, I want to address, has nothing to do with any of this. Because gold dealers can be construed to be conspiracy theorists, I want to dispel that rumor. I had a good friend tell me yesterday that the president repeated the Gettysburg Address. It has been repeated by every president for the past 150 years since Lincoln did it, I think. I know certainly in modern times it's done on the anniversary. The president did not intentionally omit "under God" in the Gettysburg Address. The Library of Congress has 2 original copies. Neither of those copies addresses "under God." There are 5 total, 3 that were supposedly written after the address that do contain it. So for the president to be smeared online, and I did not vote either election for the president, and I am not advocating him this time. I am definitely going to back him up in the fact that he did not omit "under God." Abraham Lincoln did. It's not a major debate point, but if you want to chime in and you've got questions or comments, you can chat with me online anytime. That's at ustream.tv. I think that's right, Michael. That's what I see. Or you can go to themeltdown.com and register with Ustream. You can chat with me live. I'll be more than happy to field your questions or comments and put them out there. And most people would never get into addressing the issue of, quote, the president, because it's not real popular. Well, I can live with that. That part doesn't bother me. What does is when people mismanage or misconstrue the information, and the internet, of course, lights up in a matter of moments. Now, I do share the concerns, and I watch the market pretty close. I want coins that are the premium side of value. The fact that you can look at a Mint State 65 graded coin and a Mint State 66, and you can grab the 65 because it's got less contact, more luster. The variables that should make the coin a 67, maybe even a Mint State 68, that would be a $5,000 coin. The fact that it might trade for $700, but it's $150 for the ugly common, isn't the important value here. The important point is that down the road, you achieve the premiums that other collectors and investors seek, the collectovestor. So when I say go through a red book, the purpose for going through the red book is to find all the different coins and stories to see what you like and what you land on. For me, it's always about the future. Now, I can also tell you in the story, in the news this morning, is that Boeing is being dumped by the 50 largest hedge funds here, quote, in the United States. Nearly $1.3 billion was taken out of Boeing stock and $2 billion was put into Facebook. Markets get manipulated, and if you've got billions of dollars, you're going to have impact in the marketplace. That's easy. I understand that. I read and watch and keep a firm grip on what's going on. Ben Bernanke is going to see his minutes released here in the very not too distant future. That would be for the past month. And the jobs report, disappointing according to Mr. Bernanke. Well, no kidding. You know why? Because our economy is faltering. And when I say falter, I'm talking about the largest disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And when you see that tilt, when you see people losing jobs or job growth being an unexisting situation, folks, we're coming into the holiday season. And our 80 billion now pushes up towards 85 billion in treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. It is controversial, it is damaging, and it's going to bring, quote, stimulus to a halt. That's our problem. And frankly, where we need to see a couple of 100,000 jobs a month, we're not getting there. And the economy and the labor market is weak. The metals are weak because banks understand they don't need to hold gold and they don't need to hold silver. But I'm telling you, while the opportunity is there, grab it. And I talk to so many people, and I send emails out to clients, and I'm trying to always function and move things around and take care of explaining so you understand why. Now, it gets pretty amazing because I know people who put money in art or jewelry. I'm talking about automobiles. Those are bubble markets. And obviously the sale of a 1796 25-cent piece that commands over $1.5 million indicates that wealth is scared. They're worried about the economy. When you find somebody who sells something for a ridiculously low number, you can bank on the fact that it was probably stolen. Not uneducated, because people today understand how to surf the internet. They understand how to calculate the value of something. And when they sell it and take lowball numbers, odds are there's something fishy. That's why pawn shops are audited and regulated, so that if anyone drops something off that's been stolen, they can be found out. But there's loopholes, and people find a way to function in the loopholes. So bad information, or just being a thief, comes out eventually. Truth of the matter is that good information is exactly that. I will not structure a deal. I've relied on other people to do the reports that need to be generated to the government when someone shows up with too much cash, or they liquidate something that's got to be placed on a 1099-B. But I want to educate you so you understand those things. Now, folks, it's going to be a short day for me. I'm going to be out of here about 1 o'clock today. There will not be an afternoon podcast. Michael is going to jump on at least in the morning. Are you planning on doing one tomorrow? Be on tomorrow afternoon as well. They will be 15 to 20-minute segments. Folks, if you've got questions and comments, I hope you'll reach out to me. You can do that at Brett, B-R-E-T-T, by emailing me, Brett at thegoldexchange.net, B-R-E-T-T at thegoldexchange.net. You can click on the meltdown.com. If you look under the links section, then that will lead you into the Gold Exchange and into Eagle Numismatics. We do keep up banners on the front page for our archived shows, over 500 shows. We're pushing a little over 360 hours of audio. And the message is clear. Call me, 281-548-2646. That's 281-548-2646. Hit option 0. Folks, there is a plethora of material in the marketplace. And yes, it's going to take somebody with $1 billion to understand that they can secure wealth, protect themselves. Don't worry about the near term in the market. The fact that you buy an ounce of gold and you pay $1,350 for it, and it may go down to $1,000, does not mean you lost anything. Not until you sell it. And ultimately, if you see somebody selling something for too little, odds are there's a catch. Whether it's counterfeit, because I get a lot of counterfeit broken gold in here now. Most people sold off their stuff the last 4 or 5 years because of a marketing company in South Florida that doesn't even exist anymore, because they were taking in 20,000 packets a month, paying as little as 10 to 20 cents on the dollar. And folks, I track people. I know when people are selling stuff too cheap. It's easy to find them. Ultimately, it's about putting together portfolios. And while we try to update things on a regular basis, maintaining several different websites and the contact with the customers and the other variables in a business day, things change quickly. So if you think that we're ignoring it, you're the one who needs to give me a shout. There's 5,000, maybe 6,000 dealers out there. Some of them don't have any experience. They rely on the management company. And that's the same thing that you do when you buy a stock or a bond or an ETF. Gold, quote, is supposed to be behind GLD. It isn't there, and it's so over leveraged that you can't make any headway. When gold pops, when gold runs, you will see far in excess of the $1,924 we saw in the summer of 2011. And the bottom line is, I want to assist you. I want to educate you. I want you to understand when to buy, when to sell, when to hold, and when to trade. It's all there, and I'll share it with you anytime. Now, folks, if you've got questions, I've given you phone numbers. I've given you a way to be able to reach out to me. I want to build a portfolio that makes sense. And if all you're in it for is the lowest dollar value commodity that I can get, odds are you're not the person that I can help. I'll price shop with you. I'll certainly give you numbers. We do those transactions by wire. Ultimately, I'm always quoting with a cash price. So if you change the transaction and seek a different way of doing business, it's okay. Not going to offend me in the least. What is you're trying to find a way to carve me up when I'm already working on less than 2%, which, frankly, I remember in the grocery business, they only wanted a 1% net after their expenses. Bottom line, what that really means is that things are definitely going to be changing, and the internet is wrought full of fraud. People who don't understand the markets, people who haven't been around long enough. And whether or not there is an investigation by anybody in the House or the Senate, documents have been doctored. There's so much proof of it. The government is constantly trying to make things sound better than they really are. That's why you've got to make the changes. That's why you have to understand that stories come and go. But the truth of the matter is interest rates are rising, and the cost of money is going to get more expensive if you can get, quote, funded. Those are the other variables. So if you've got questions or comments, I hope you'll email me, Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at thegoldexchange.net. You can call the store 281-548-COIN. That's 281-548-2646. Hit option 0. If you're outside of the Houston market and you still need to use a toll-free number, that would be 877-705-2646. Hit option 0. You won't get trapped in the phone system. I'm a pretty busy guy, but I always like talking to listeners and people who are seeking good information. If you've been misled or you're not 1,000% sure of what you're hearing, give me a shout. I want to help you out. It just makes sense. That's the calling. Coins, folks, there's billions of coins out there, but only the right coins are being sought after by the elite. And you don't have to own the finest known. You just don't want the worst known. All coins carry value, whether that's the intrinsic melt value. And I got to tell you, we were putting together a portfolio for somebody yesterday. The portfolio had going in a 1954 mint set. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco. Each coin, penny, nickel, dime, quarter, half dollar, with the mint mark, D or S. Philadelphia's are blank, so you never see them with a P, unless it's a war nickel, different topic. But the 1954 set in the last year has gone from a retail value of $300 to a wholesale value of over $400. Now I'm talking to you retail to wholesale, the real market. And frankly, I've seen people pay in excess of $500 for the set in the original packaging. Most dealers want to send those coins in and get them graded as they should, because depending on the final grade, that's going to determine the real value of the market. Things are moving up. If all you're looking at is gold and silver, I'm telling you, you're missing the mark. You do it the way you want. I'm going to tell you what I believe and why I believe it. And I can tell you that whether or not it's a silver dollar, a mint set, or any other type of coin, the market seems to be hot for rarity. That's where you're going to make your money, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years from now. Follow the market. It's like a bouncing ball. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. But if you're playing for the long haul, this is the place to be, and it's going to be a strong market over the next several years. Anyway, I never want to get off air without thanking Texas Children's Hospital, both the Downs Clinic and the Ronald McDonald House. Now, Texas Children's has a very special place in my heart. Ultimately, my son, my only child, Jason, has mild Downs. And if you go to the meltdown.com, you can click on the donation link. The information you provide is totally anonymous. But if you're looking for somebody to tithe or make an offering to as we enter into the holiday season, please, Dr. Ostermeyer and her staff have moved off of the Fannin campus. I love what they do with all special needs kids, but Downs is special to me. The Ronald McDonald House at Texas Children's put my soon-to-be ex-wife and myself up for almost 3 weeks. Of the 3.5 weeks Jason was in PICU, we spent only a couple of nights out on the chairs, but we could get up any time of the day or night and go check on him. There are 20 rooms on the 4th floor at Texas Children's at the Ronald McDonald House, and if you can provide a hot meal to those families, please call 832-824-8600. That's 832-824-8600. Nancy Allen and her staff would be more than happy to help you arrange the hot meal, a tithe or an offering, wherever you donate, whether it's Texas Children's or anywhere else around the country or the world. I love the kids. I'll do anything for them, and I appreciate the doctors, the nurses, the staff, and always the volunteers at Texas Children's and everywhere else. Folks, thanks for listening in. I'll miss you this afternoon, but I promise to be back on Friday. Have a great day. God bless you, and I hope you'll reach out for us.